Hi there. This is the first video in my series about planning for a trip. Now, I currently have a trip in progress, so some of these steps I'm going to talk about I've already done, and I'm going to go more in depth with each of the steps later on. So think of this as kind of like an introduction to my planning process, a few little tidbits. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about my upcoming trip I've got planned for Disney. I'm going in November, so some of these steps I've already done. So I'm going to kind of give you the overview, how I get to where I've got, why I'm going in November, details like that. So you've decided to go on a trip. So step one is pick where you're going to go. You've got to decide where you're going before you can even go any further. For this one, obviously, like I say, I've already made my decision to go to Disney. If I had made other decisions, the following steps I would take care of in a slightly different way. But you can't start planning your adventure till you know where the adventure is going to take you. Once you've decided where you're going, you come to step two. Step two is when are you going to go? That's very important. There's a lot of factors that you'll want to take into consideration when you travel. One of those, you're going to look at the weather where you're going to go. You need to look at things like what other groups are going to be there. Is it spring break? Is it Christmas break? Something like that. So you look at crowd levels. As I'm doing Disney, what I looked at for this was I look first of all to see when is there a Run Disney event. I don't want to go on a Run Disney weekend because they're going to have so many people in town just for that event. You're going to have a harder time finding accommodations. You're going to see more people in the parks. There's going to be strange hours because of the event. So it's one of the factors you look into. Like I say, I'll break down a lot more of the details with Disney and Disney travel as we go. When you know there's going to be a huge event, which hotels fill up for certain things, stuff like that. That's really important. Which then brings us to step number three. Step number three is picking where to stay. You have to weigh so many things. Like with this trip with Disney, I look at, do I want to stay on the grounds? Do I want to look outside? If I'm traveling someplace else, say if I go to New Orleans, I look at it and I say, okay, which area of town do I want to stay in? Do I want to stay in a hotel? Do I want to look at an Airbnb, a short-term rental? What kind of thing am I doing? Who's in my group? What's the best fit for us? So those are the kinds of steps you go through when you're picking where to stay. And my fourth thing I think about when traveling is tips for solo travelers. This will be my third trip planning to go to Disney on my own. I went 2 times before, once in 2020, once in 2021, and I looked at a lot of factors. Traveling by yourself is very different than traveling with a group. I mean, I know that's obvious, right? That goes without saying. But there are different factors you have to take into account, like your safety. For one thing, when you're traveling alone, you have to be a little bit more cognizant of that. It's not so much that you expect everybody else to treat you different, safer, and things like that. It's just more of a how not to be a victim. And there are a lot of steps in that. And for me, that means that my step three, picking where to stay, is pretty simple. When I go to Disney by myself, I stay on Disney property because I'm a solo traveler. It is safer for me because, for one thing, if you're traveling around Disney, you know they have cameras. You know they're tracking. You wear your magic band. That's an RFID chip. They keep that data. You know there is information. I also make sure when I'm traveling alone that I check in with people. I have people who expect to hear from me by certain times, certain days, things like that. And I check in and they know I'm okay. Especially since I drive to Disney. It's about an 8-hour drive for me, so I usually drive. And that's another thing. I also make sure that I check in along my way when I'm on the road. I have other road safety tips, which I'll go into in a later time. I'll do a whole special just on my solo traveler trip tips. But I do check in. That is a safety measure. It's not so much a, oh, I gotta be glued to my phone, I gotta text. No, it's if you check in occasionally, they know you're safe. And it keeps you safer, less risk. So that's important for a solo traveler. So that's kind of an overview of the steps I look at every time I think about taking a trip. I will, like I say, break down all the options. Probably not so much having to break down step one, picking where to go, because Disney was already chosen, and that's pretty simple. When you sit down to make a plan for a trip, you know where you're going. But I'll break down more of the details into how I pick the resort I stay in, how I pick when to go. I know I have a lot more flexibility because I do not have children. I can go whenever time allows. But I'll break that down for you because when you're planning a trip, those are the things you need to think about. You also may say, hey, Kendra, it's May. Why are you already planning a November trip? I've had it booked for a long time. I am the type of person who I love every aspect of the trip, whether it's planning, whether it's going. So I spend my entire time leading up to it thinking about it. I get to have that anticipation. I get to think, ooh, what's going to be open? These new rides are coming out. What am I going to get to do? What do I get to see? What can I eat? They've changed the menu. What's new here? What's new there? So for me, I get to enjoy my trip pretty much from booking day till I come back. And that's when you start planning the next one. So you have another whole, basically, year of thinking about it and planning and enjoying the trip, even when you're not there yet. So if you have any specific questions regarding any of my steps, how I make my plans, how I do any of this, please let me know. And I'll be very happy to go into more detail as we move forward and into other videos. I'm looking forward to this because, like I say, I love planning. I love going to Disney. I love just going on trips in general. And I would love to share the information that I've learned over the years with anyone who wants to hear. All right, so that's that for today. So I thank you very much. And like I say, if you have any questions, drop me a note. I'll be very happy to address it in a future video.